my friends, Kenny Stevens here, and welcome to Rookie Real Estate, where your road to success begins right here and right now. Whether you're looking to transition from your day job to your dream job, or you're on the road to your first 50 transactions, success is in the details, my friends, and we're going to unpack the fundamental principles required for you to thrive. Are you ready? Let's do this. Adventure continues. Thank you for being a part of the Rookie Real Estate family. Today, you may be listening for you, but eventually, you're going to start sending people you care about to this podcast so they too can grow. Your comments and emails will fuel this podcast and potentially be the inspiration needed for somebody listening to get up off the couch, make their calls, knock on some doors, to reach out to their sphere of influence, to get moving. I'd love to hear your rookie real estate stories about your first year in the business. Share them with me so that I can then put them on the podcast and share and inspire other people. You don't want to hear just about me and what happened. I want to hear about you guys. Everybody wants to hear about how somebody made it in this business. So thank you for coming back for more. Have you heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? So let me ask you a couple of questions. Have you stopped, gotten alone, and written down your why? Have you created a family budget yet and therefore start to build your business budget? Have you researched what the average price of home is in your market or spoken to a broker about the average commissions earned in your area? Have you taken steps based on the podcast you've already listened to where you are today? Are you moving forward? Waiting for anything else to happen for you is not going to work out. If you come here every Monday to listen, that's okay. But if you're seriously kicking this idea of real estate around in your head, you need to get busy. You need to, don't just show up on Monday listening. Get something done. Put stuff on paper. This might be the profession that changes your family's stars. Nobody's going to do that for you. You've got to get up and you got to do it for yourself. Figure out your why. Because if it's not real estate, it's going to be something else, and you need to know it either way. Your wife needs to know it. Your kids need to know it. People that love you need to know who you are and why you do what you do. So if I've not driven you insane yet, which is very well could happen, get up and write it down, figure it out. I'm so excited today because I get to interview a rookie that came on. I sold his house, and he came on, and it's such a great interview. We recorded it earlier, and we're going to overlay it. I'm going to be able to stop a few times and really dig into what he's saying. But it was a great interview. It was raw. It was not rehearsed. I gave him questions. We didn't talk about his answers. It's really good. But you're going to hear a real life, true success story. So let's dive right into it and just enjoy the next 30, 45 minutes together, because this is a really good episode, guys. You're going to want to enjoy or take the time to listen to this one. So here we go. All right, today we've got a real life, in the flesh success story joining us today. A buddy of mine, Jim Youngblood. He is the very first interview for the Rookie Real Estate Podcast. I appreciate you coming in, Jim. Good to have you this morning.
Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate the opportunity. It's a pleasure.
So let me bring you guys up to speed. I met Jim through my sphere of influence. Now, you'll hear a lot about an SOI, sphere of influence, on this podcast. Trust me, I'm going to wear that out. But Jim was the new son-in-law of a guy whose hunting lease I'm on. So this guy, I worked, been introduced to him, invited to join his hunting lease, and got to know his family along the way. We went to church together and things like that. And then this guy, Jim Youngblood, comes along and starts dating this guy's daughter, which, that's pros and cons. You get to hear the real life, real story from the father-in-law on this one. But luckily, he really liked Jim. They ended up getting married. I got to meet Jim. They come to church a few times, things like that. And in the process, Jim and Brittany needed to sell their homes. and then buy a home together after they'd already gotten married. So I got, as a sphere of influence, introduced or the chance to serve you and Brittany in this process. And we didn't really know each other up until that point, but through just interactions with your family, your father-in-law and family through there, got to know each other. So that's kind of the backstory on Jim, but a super long story short, we've gotten through successfully through all that sales process and got you guys a home. You guys are moved in. And then, one day out of the blue, you just literally called me and said, hey, man, can we get together? I'd like to talk to you about real estate. And, of course, I'm always willing to talk about real estate, as you well know. So I really wanted to dive in, Jim, because people are driving down the road on the way to work. It's, probably in gridlock, wondering, golly, why am I doing this job? I want to do something more. I want some freedom. I want to be able to dream, be able to make the money I've always dreamt that I could do and things like that. But again, we're talking about a job that they're transferring from probably a career potentially to 100% commission. So we'll get into that more in just a minute. But really, what caused you to see real estate as a possible career path for you, and kind of give us what you were already in and lead us into that thought process that you had?
So I just had to, really out of necessity, start questioning what I needed to do for a career. For 10 plus years, I had worked in emergency medicine. I was a paramedic, had achieved all of my hopes and dreams of my entire life, was a flight paramedic for one of the most successful, air medical services in the country. Had gone back to school, got my nursing license, had worked in critical care, emergency medicine, and, had really just arrived at the pinnacle of nursing and emergency medicine, and absolutely loved it. It was everything that I thought it would be. And as time went on, life events happened. I started feeling the stresses and the pressures of the job and learned what burnout was. Things that never used to bother me started bothering me. Really, really bad experiences with patients started, coming back to me at night, having trouble sleeping.
And I think that's another way we connected, because me in law enforcement and doing severe child abuse investigations, and there's, many flights you made with infants and things like that. It was something that we could connect with. But also, you program that and you put it into a file, and really probably any profession, you have things that you have to deal with. Not all of them are life and death like we were dealing with, but it's still things that you bring home with you. And a lot of times they say, leave it at work, and then, or don't bring home to work, or don't bring work to home. But reality is we tend to do it. And as the pressures, kind of built up with you, it was happening more and more. So that was a spark that I was kind of hoping, really seriously, honestly, people. I'm glad he didn't say, okay, if Kenny can do this, anybody can do this. And I thought, well, if Kenny can do it, I could probably be really good at it. I'm glad that was not his response, although sitting around a campfire, he may joke around with me on that one. But
it still may be true.
Well, that's true. That is the case. But that kind of kicked off your thought process of, hey, maybe real estate could be an option for you, given, you'd reached where you're at, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of, just like I said, hit a dead end, took a sabbatical from work, just trying to gain some clarity, figure out what I needed to do. Started questioning myself and my close friends and family. What am I good at? What do people see me doing? Where can I make an impact? And, I realized that I was really good and enjoyed and had talents at helping people, at taking stressful life events and making them simple, and being able to, regulate people's emotions in difficult times.
So I want to pause right there for a minute and really make sure that you heard what Jim was saying. The fun part about going back to, almost 3 years later and interviewing Jim, I'm able to recall some of the things that he's talking about that I didn't remember. But you've listened to Know Your Why. We covered that in the second podcast. after I tried to talk you out of real estate altogether. But Jim was developing his why when he was going around asking people like, hey, what do you think I'm good at? People that, had weight, whose voice was loud in his ears. And sometimes in the process of developing your why, and something I didn't think about when the first podcast was, getting a loan is critical, but I do like the point that Jim made. He started asking people that loved him and cared about him, like, what do you think I would be good at? What's something that I could do that, would feed me, feed my soul? And then he developed through that, and probably some encouragement and probably somebody being honest with him, figured out that maybe real estate is something that he could do. So maybe developing your why does need to be a multi-layer. I should probably add that in next time I talk about it. Talk to people who love you, who will be honest and blunt and forthcoming with about what they think you're good at and where they think you could fit. Some people, the weight of their the words that they say could really speak life into you, is what I'm trying to say. So let's add that in. I mean, if it's something you're looking at, start interviewing some people that love you and that you care about, and see if they can help you in developing your why. Let's continue on.
And also growing up, my parents, built many homes, worked in new home construction, and I always enjoyed that. I was always on a construction site growing up. I understood how homes were built. Always had interest in the market, in the finances of homes, saw them as good investment opportunities, whether for a family or, a separate investment. And so that's really what started to lead me to the possibility of me getting into real estate as a career, is, still helping people. I helped people with death, which was, one of the most difficult things, people's most difficult days of their lives. I showed up and intervened. The next, statistically most stressful event is divorce. I had no intention of being an attorney or a counselor. And then, the third most stressful life event is moving, picking a house, making it a home, and moving. And I really felt called, after confiding in friends like you, family members, and praying about it, that was a logical step for me to go in to help people.
So your wife, Brittany, she's in the medical field as well, and actually how you guys met, but that's another story for another day. But coming in with, when you started verbalizing this thought process with your wife, and you knowing how far you had gone in school and how much time it took you and all the clinicals and things like that, and eventually riding a helicopter and showing up and doing all the things that you did. How did you start verbalizing this with your wife, going, I'm thinking this may not be what I want to do the rest of my life? What did that look like, or how did that feel, or how did she respond? Is kind of really what I'm reaching at, because there's somebody driving that goes, if I decide to do this, I've got to break it to my entire family. And of course, my story. My whole family were police officers. My grandfather, my mom, my dad, my twin brother. It was blue bloods. We could have been a reality TV show, honestly. And then I had to breach that with them. So I'm wondering how that went with you and your wife, Brittany, in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was really, really hard, because everybody that knew Brittany and I saw us as, a power couple here in the local area. She was, a nurse manager and a leader, in the children's hospital. And I was the same thing on the adult side, working for Lifelight. So it was really hard.
So you've mentioned, you've heard Jim mention several times, it was really, really hard bringing that up to Brittany, his wife. And what came to mind whenever he was saying that was, if you go and drop a bomb on your spouse that you're fixing to, I'm quitting my job, I'm going into real estate, you may not get the response that you, and really it may not even be fair to expect a positive, encouraging response from your spouse if you just go and drop that in their lap. What Jim was saying was, he had already thought about and talked to people and created and maybe not knowing at the time, developing his why, but he didn't just, throw this all at Brittany at one time. He kind of had in his mind, why and reasons, and, breached it to her in a way that hopefully she could absorb without going just, I'm doing it. This is it. I'm out. And if you jump like that and you go, I'm out, unless you've got a year or two's worth of income available and ready, don't quit your day job for your dream job, because your dream job could literally become a nightmare. That's what we're talking about in rookie real estate. Create the plan, and then give your spouse, whether you're sharing this with your wife, or you're sharing this with your husband or your significant other, or somebody you're dating in a serious relationship, or even your family, give them a chance to absorb it. Don't just throw it at them and go, this is it. Give them a shot at being able to hear what you're saying, and be able to process what you're throwing at them, and really be fair in the response that they give you, and then maybe layer it out if there are any challenges that come up in the conversation as you create your plan. So Jim said several times, it was hard. I was there. I did that with my family. It wasn't so much hard with my wife as it was with, breaching the subject with my mom, who's 30 years into law enforcement. You go, okay, Kenny, you're a grown man. You're worried about what your mom thinks? Absolutely. The way I was raised, my mom and dad, they speak into my life, and their words are huge in my ears. So yes, telling my parents who've been in law enforcement their entire lives that I was thinking about getting out was very, very difficult. So I could really relate here. And then I breached it and had it layered, and we had a lot of conversations, and it worked out well. So think about that if you get into the fact that you're just going to drop it in somebody's lap. Don't be shocked by unreasonable response. You need to approach that very, very delicately. Let's keep listening.
Hard to, swallow the fact that I wasn't going to be that anymore. I had to figure out what the next step was, but I knew that the past career wasn't logical anymore, and I had to take that step. First, I remember confiding in my brother-in-law, Justin, on a hunting trip. We were on our way to Alabama. And I just remember conversing with him, in the truck on the way there, that, can't do my job anymore. Can't do it. Started talking about the pros and the cons. He has a degree in construction and real estate, and, had lots of experience in it, and kind of started bouncing it off of him. A couple weeks later, we're all in the car, he and I and my sister-in-law and Brittany, we're in the car going to Georgia to our grandmother's funeral. And I really started bouncing that conversation off of him again, so my wife, Brittany, would hear it. And when we came home from Georgia, that's when I reached out to you. And I said, hey, let's have lunch. I need to talk.
So it was a soft approach. It was just kicking tires. It wasn't like, hey, honey, I'm jumping into real estate, and let's, suck it up. This is what's fixing to happen. Because that's really not the kind of guy that you are anyway. And nor is it the kind of person or process that you've got to do in transitioning if you really are looking at that. I mean, I've already covered several layers up into this podcast here to interview you, but I wanted to see and show through your process how it could successfully go, and kicking those tires and having conversations and being, transparent with your wife and your family and your brother-in-law, and, having those conversations. But real estate really wasn't truly new to you. Now, buying and selling homes, and you'd already been through that process with me, but, growing up with construction sites and, rehab, and your mom and dad helped us in a rehab that you and I did together, right, which was a lot of fun. I mean, they were all in, naturally pros at it, which was awesome. So if you think back to the question when we met, and you've got a better memory than I do, but what were the main questions that you had for me? Because this is what I'm trying to base rookie real estate off of is here's what they want to know the most. And I remember my feelings and the questions I had, but I was in a different life situation than you were. I had nearly a litter of children already at that point. Not really, but was already into my okay, when you have kids, you think like you've always had kids. At the time when I transitioned, I had a 3-year-old daughter, maybe 4-year-old daughter, and another daughter on the way. So I didn't have a litter at that point, but once you have a kid, sometimes you just always remember yourself as having several kids, and I've got a total of 3 now. So just want to clarify in case my wife listens to this and go, we did not have a litter. So just being real, throwing that out there. We had 1.5 kids at that point, and children as well. So what were some of the questions that you had for me?
Well, my long-term memory is not the best, but to the best of my recollection, the top question that I really had for you is, what do real estate agents, what do realtors do? What does your day look like? What to expect in the business the first 3 months, the first 6 months, the first 12 months, as far as time commitments go, income, what to expect, when to start making money. And then lastly is, how do I get my real estate license, and how do I get an interview with Tara and Terry DeSelms to get on the DeSelms team? You know, that was my main focus and purpose for our meeting.
So figuring out what the life of a realtor looked like, obviously, I was able to answer that, and I'm probably a little bit too blunt in the aspect of it's not just a free for all of you get to go play golf in the mornings, and then you're going to grab a lunch with a buddy, and then you got drinks at 3:00. It's nothing like that at all, and I was probably very, very blunt on times. I think you've got to be committed, and there's got to be blocked and dollar producing activities. So I'm sure I covered that, and I've covered that a little bit already in this podcast. But second one, income is a big deal, and you and I both are in professions where it was a respectable income. I mean, we're at a point where we were able to provide for a family. We're doing good, but not necessarily in my mind what I felt like I was able to really truly go after and get, considering I was a government employee. I was a police officer. So, and then the last thing, going into getting onto a team. Now, we've not covered that in a podcast yet, and I'm going to really dive down deep because there's pros and cons depending on your personality and what you want to do in real estate, and even selling or buying and things like that. Whether or not a team works best for you, or whether or not you need to get into more of a brokerage to where you're on your own and you don't have necessarily the accountability or the somebody with you every day or a couple of days a week. So we'll cover that in another podcast. But clearly you did well in answering those questions. Obviously, with DeSelms Real Estate.
Exactly. You answered all of my questions to the point to where I went straight home. I got on the internet. I found the next class, which started in 2 weeks, and pulled the credit card out, called the wife. She was pulling up to the gym to work out after work. And I was like, hey, honey, just so you know, I met with Kenny. It went great. We're going to talk more about it. But I'm signing up for real estate school right now. And
I think that next Monday we had lunch. Me and Tara and Brittany and you had lunch at P.F. Chang's right across the road here. The guy was on the phone, called his wife, had the credit card out, and scheduled real estate school. This had just gotten very real. So the emotion involved for me, when you interview people and they make life-changing decisions like that, there's a lot of weight that you feel, and another reason why rookie real estate is so critical to get the information out there. But this wasn't something that he just put together that day. I mean, we're talking about, this was over several weeks that we had these conversations, and that that final day I've laid it all out, and he pulled the trigger. And then you hear also that we met with the wife. The wife needed to know what she could expect of her husband along the way, because the spouse is as affected by this transition, and the family is as affected by this transition as the person getting the license. So I really wanted to prep the wife or the spouse as well. And plus, we always interview. If somebody's coming to work with our company, we want to interview the significant other. Sometimes they're married to crazy, and we don't want to invite crazy into our environment because we just don't have time for crazy. And luckily, Brittany was amazing, and I already knew that. But it's important for a business owner as well to, make sure that you're interviewing people and their spouses before, you guys get engaged and join up in our partnerships along the way. So let's continue on. And sat down, and because again, I may be getting ahead of my questions here, but Brittany's a planner. Tara was a planner. I already knew whenever I got ready to do this, there was going to be a very strategic plan in place, and I knew having already known Brittany even before I knew you, she's very logistical and was like, okay, tell me what you've told Jim, because you call her, you're on the phone, you're clicking, I'm joining real estate school, getting together and having that conversation. So when you guys prepared, like you and Brittany, you signed up for the class, you guys created a plan and transition. So what did that look like for you guys? I mean, it's several years ago, but what did that look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, personally for myself, I had my plan after I met with you. So then we extended it to our wives, met with you and Tara. And, Tara, being a planner, like you said, already had a checklist there of things that you needed to do.
Which Brittany just loved that, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Expenses that you're going to incur, how much it's going to cost to get your license and get a business going. And it just gave Brittany an opportunity to ask questions as well to increase her comfort level with you and Tara professionally, even though she had already known you for years, personally from church and from hunting on our farm. So after that, you and Tara pointed me in the right directions, met with a financial planner, met with a CPA, and
which are all checklists that, any broker that you're going to go interview with are probably going to have a systematic checklist to what you need to do. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they do. If they don't, then you need to keep interviewing. But in that case, I mean, we had the first 100 things you needed to do in your first 3 months. Right. I mean, and we'll probably potentially make that available on the podcast one day as well. And then brokers around the world can look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's the same, because every city's different and every town and things like that and association requires different things. But creating that plan, again, builds the potential for success and being able to get out and really, truly launch. How did the first 3 months go?
They were good. I mean, you and I were sitting together on April the 14th, and we were at Puckett's Boathouse having lunch after a listing appointment. I was just shadowing you at that point. I was not licensed, so I couldn't do anything, but I was just, on your coattail, and we were having lunch when my license posted, and it was a great day.
I do remember that. That truly was not planned. I was thinking, I don't remember eating at Puckett's, but now I remember you holding up your phone
and you took
showing
a picture.
Me, and I took a picture.
Yeah.
Your license had just gone active,
yeah.
And you had actually, I had done all the numbers that presentation, but you did the presentation at that one, if I remember correctly, didn't you? Is that one that you did the presentation for?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Either way, I was thinking it was the one over Beer Valley. So either way, my memory.
If that was the house,
wrong.
yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But it went good. One of the first things you told me to do was establish my sphere on paper. Started making a list. Started with my wedding list and phone contacts. Started putting everybody's name, address, email, phone numbers down. We sat down together, crafted a launch letter so that I could let everybody know that I was transitioning in my career.
Yeah, because you're going from like Jim, the nurse paramedic, life flight, to now Jim, the real estate agent. And that process of people changing their vision when they picture you, you needed them to know and be exposed to, okay, there's a new Jim out, and this Jim's here to help you. So,
exactly. Yeah. Huge change. So, sent out that launch letter, started mailing out postcards, started calling, texting everybody, and then, spending time with people that I believe that would be my biggest cheerleaders that would help me, promote me, introduce me to people.
Right.
And, when I asked Brittany how my first 3 months went, she said, all I can remember is your phone never stopped ringing.
All right, so let's stop right there. So a big thing that I want to point out right now is there's an amazing book. It's 7 Levels of Communication that is, it's in essence, when I read it, I felt like I could have written it, although I'm not an author, but it was already how I was doing business before I even read the book. But I share that with that book with new people because although in the first episode I said your sphere of influence, the people you know will not use you in your first year because they know you have no idea what you're doing. But on the other side of that, if we can launch a very professional letter talking about who you partnered with, whatever company you choose to go with, use their numbers, talk about having a rock star mentor, and then they start seeing through social media and word of mouth that, man, you're killing it. You got your first deal done in 3 months. You're got 2 or 3 coming up, and they start seeing all this celebratory type social media posts, which is what you should be doing all along the way anyway. They're going to use you faster. But if you don't have 10 or 15 cheerleaders that you can go to, let's just say 10, that you can sit down and go, I am brand new at this, but I am not going to drop the ball. I'm going to give them 100%. I've got a mentor that will be beside me every step of the way. I mean, there's 10 people that love you enough that if they hear of somebody buying or selling, and hopefully them themselves, if they look to buy or sell, they will go ahead and use you even though they know you're brand new. Now, maybe your mama and your uncle and your brother, they may be really, really close to you, but you've got to create that inner circle of cheerleaders. And there's even books out there that you only have to have 20 people, and that's all you need for marketing. Now, we like to have about 3 legs here. We want your sphere of influence. We want you working, the team leads that our company generates, and we want you to have another leg, kind of like a 3-legged stool. But in this case, Jim did exactly that. He wrote them all out, and he started having these conversations, which you're going to hear in a few minutes. You're going to see the results of that, but he's building that building block along the way. So let's keep going. Yes, that's what we want to happen the first 3 months. Your phone never stops ringing, because that means something is happening. You're not just sitting there waiting watching the paint dry on the walls. So,
but phone never stopped ringing. And I remember, a conversation you and I had where you said, with the devotion that you have to being successful, if you will just not say no to anything, I will help you.
Never say no.
But you cannot say no to any opportunity that I put in front of you, because you'll learn from it, grow from it, and start to build a business from it. So,
well, and some of those not saying no's was I wasn't able to make it to, Lebanon to show a house, which was, Lebanon's 45 minutes away, and my time blocking, something popped up and I couldn't make it. And I'd be like, all right, Jim, I need you to go to Lebanon. They may or may not make an offer. They may or may not like it, but it's 45 minutes there. It's 45 minutes back. And, I'll figure out how to get you paid based on what needs to be done. But not saying no. There's a lot of miles you put on that truck. I mean, your truck passed everything but a gas station that first 3 to 6 months, I'm sure, because you literally took that at face value. You did not say no. You were like, all right, I'll do it. And you literally did it. And I still say that today. I don't know that I've said that yet on the podcast, but I still tell new people, just don't say no. If it's at all possible, just go do it. Whether you're making $25 to unlock a door for one of our top producing agents, or they're going to split part of their commission with you and you get to write the offer. I mean, just don't, because it's not about the dollar at that point. It's about the time logged and the experience in front of eye to eye with people.
Exactly.
Right? So I just said it's not about the dollar at that point. And you're thinking, man, I've got to make some money fast. And we're now, a month in or 4 weeks in doing, 40 to 60 to 80 hours a week. And I'm serious. If you're not doing that many hours, then you have misunderstood what the true requirement is to succeed in real estate when you're brand new, because there's a massive learning curve. Jim was already rocking and rolling for 3 months. That's a long time. And not saying no every time. I literally cannot remember a time that he said no. He figured out how to make it work. And that in itself, when you can say, all right, no matter what, if it's humanly possible and my family can bear it without me for me missing dinner or not be able to get to a game, a soccer game or something along that lines for a very short period of time, there's some sacrifices that have to take place. But ultimately down the road, now the guy can say no. And we're going to cover that a little bit more in the interview, but he did not say no, even though he was putting in that many hours and not seeing anything as a result sometimes. He still pushed through. that's going to be one of the roadblocks everybody faces and goes, man, I feel like I am spinning my wheels, not making anything and putting all effort in. Don't forget this spot right now, because you're going to be there one day and you got to keep pushing.
In my past career, I'd spent 6 years in college, tens of thousands of dollars for the education that I had. And with real estate, in Tennessee, it's just a 2-week course.
Right.
And, the experience or the cost of entry is very low compared to the past career. So, I definitely chalked up a lot of that to the cost of learning and getting experience as well.
Absolutely. And sometimes you can't even pay for some of the experiences that you went through, because your first ones, and I call it making you a better agent, but your first one seemed like everything that could fall apart does. And, we're always jumping in and going, okay, do this. This is what you need to anticipate, things like that. But for rookies, if it can fall apart, it's going to fall apart just because you're so excited about anticipating, like, this is going to be my first one. And I'm like, okay, that one died. Now let's go get another one. So you stuck with it. That was great. So
right at the 3-month mark, I did close my first deal. So it took me 3 solid months to find my first buyer, find them a home, and close my first deal.
So we're talking about 3 months, 12, what's 4, 8, 12, 12 weeks.
Yep, 12 weeks with
working
no paycheck.
40, 60, maybe even 80 hours a week of running and gunning, shadowing agents, making calls, all the things that you've got to do to get ready. You worked 12 weeks before you got your first paycheck. Tell me about your first closing, the details. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember really well. You and I was shadowing you on a listing, and you were going to be listing this home for a couple that you knew. And you and I and Justin, my brother-in-law, were headed to go shoot guns. We were just going to have a guy's afternoon out, and we were talking about the house. Justin had just got engaged, and we started asking him, hey, what are you going to do? After you and your wife get married, are y'all going to stay in Franklin or whatever? And started talking about this house right in the middle of Franklin where we live, and being a great first-time home buyer, or a great first-time home for somebody. Got him motivated, showed the house to him, and showed him a lot of other houses and Rebecca, and they realized it was a good investment. It was a good time to buy for them. And so you were actually represented the sellers because you knew them, and then I represented Justin and Rebecca, my brother and sister-in-law, as the buyers.
That seems like a lifetime ago.
It did.
Good gracious. Yep. So your first purchase was your brother-in-law, who you had first breached a subject with, driving down the road to a hunting weekend, and that's the first guy you sell a house to. Man, how awesome is that? I really, truly have forgotten that. All right, so at what point in your first year did you reach the feeling that you had done the right thing, that this profession really was for you?
Well, honestly, it didn't really click in the first 12 months of business. It was month 13 when it really clicked, and it was in May of 2017. So I'd had my license for 13 months. And at that point, I was consistently closing business, consistently helping people, and I was beginning to generate, at that point, more business than I could handle myself. And so I was able to help some other agents gain some business. So
13 months in.
13 months in.
You're handing off stuff.
Is when it really started to click that I was doing the right thing.
Wow. So 13 months, we talk about the people don't make it their first year. 9 out of 10. You're now 13 months in and on a team here, and having to find another agent to help you do something because your schedule's too full. It's so empowering to build that confidence, to wake up and go, I made it. Like, I know we beat that into your head of going, most don't make it, dude. You can't say no. Don't give up. Don't quit. Come to work. And you did all of that, and that's why you made it your first year. But to have that, I remember that feeling for me, and I don't remember what month it was. It's probably further along than yours. But the first time that I had made more in 1 month in real estate than I had in 1 year of being a police officer. I think, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be able to do this. And I had not looked up until I'd seen that and realized that. I'm like, okay, all right, let's just keep going. Keep your head down. Don't look up now. Just keep going. So that's amazing. 13 months in. I wonder when that was for me. I'll have to think back. So what was the hardest thing to learn and be confident with? Because you're jumping right out. I know you shadowed me for a while. You shadowed other top agents in our company. But really, at what point what was the hardest thing to really be confident with and to learn and just to know that you know it?
For me, with you instilling never say no, the hardest thing for me to accept and learn was that not every customer or client was a good fit to work with.
Oh, yes. Yep.
It's really hard when you have a ready, willing, and able buyer who has the means and the money to buy something and they want you to help them and for you to have to turn them away. That was the hardest thing.
Right.
Well, and there's many factors, and there will be times that we dive into that, and that may not make sense driving down the road, but you do get to a point where you can figure out whether or not you have the ability, or we as a company have the ability to do what somebody wants you to do. And sometimes either they're too lofty of what they expect, or it's unrealistic, or you can help them, but because of what they want and there's no changing, you've got to let them go. And to let somebody go, that's a big deal. I mean, the presentations usually is what I was expecting you to say, honestly, because the majority of our new people, that's what they struggle with the most, is they don't have to come in and sell themselves because they joined a team. So they can sell our numbers and our successes, which is, it's helpful, and that's a pro and a con of going with the brokerage. You can sell the brokerage's numbers, but that's usually their biggest challenge, is to get through a presentation with somebody and convince a seller that their biggest asset is going to be in your hands, and hopefully they don't ask you, okay, have you sold a house yet? That's usually what I was expecting to hear, and yours was to release somebody that you knew wasn't going to be a fit, and that's a 3-5 year type experience and knowledge of going, I'm to be able to walk away from a client, that's further along than most people ever get to, number one, but two, to know that. So that's great. That's good to hear. So was there a point that you were just praying that an appointment would end because you felt over your head? Did you ever get to that level where you were like, oh my gosh, please don't ask me another question, I don't know what to say? Did you?
Twice.
Okay.
Twice. I've got two examples.
All right.
They were both listings early on. One of them was a listing that I had already secured, and we had been marketing for a few months. And the seller, who, I knew from past relationships, called me over to his house, and he was actually calling me over to fire me.
Oh.
Because we had not sold his house, and it had been on the market for 2 or 3 months, and all the other houses in that area were just flying off the shelves. And so he had called me over to release me from my duties.
Polite way of saying you're fixing to get canned.
And, I had just taken what little experience I had at that time and what knowledge that I had about the market and about us, and our team. And I was actually able to convince him to give me 30 more days to try to sell his house after an appropriate price adjustment.
Oh, so it not necessarily didn't come down to experience, it came down to price. Doesn't it always come down to price?
It did.
So you were getting fired, and you talked your way back into another 30 days. Now, what did you have to lose, honestly, at that point?
At that point, nothing.
Right.
At that point, nothing. But, the gentleman, was a friend. He was in the middle of my sphere of influence, and I wanted to do what was right for him because I didn't want him to walk away with a total bad taste in his mouth about me and about us.
All right, here's a really good point to make in the aspect of I can't create in Jim. No matter what I can teach or what I know, I can't create in Jim. He just said, I wanted what was best for the client. And the client was inside of a sphere of influence. So he knew him, it was a friend, but I wanted what was best for him. That's the part when I mentioned the word intrinsic, I can't teach that. And Jim literally already had that in him. It's what we look for when we're interviewing agents. It's what we look for when somebody says, "Hey, they put their hand up and go, I want to be in real estate." And we start talking to them. We're looking for what their level. Everybody has a level of a meter to which they can say, "Look, this isn't right. I've got to do what's right. This isn't right. Here's what we need to do." And I just heard that with Jim saying that. That's the intrinsic value that's already programmed inside of you. And if you don't have that and you're only looking at numbers and you're only looking at closings and the dollar, that will get you in a position where not only will you get yourself in a lot of trouble, you're going to get a client, a buyer, or a seller in trouble if you can't distinguish with a very deep down passion, knowing that there's right and there's wrong, be able to distinguish between the two and figure out it's not about the money. If a deal closes, great, you get paid, you earned it, go and celebrate. But sometimes you have got to kill a deal or make adjustments inside of a deal. And I can't always teach that. It's already inside. It's inside of Jim. It's inside of the people we strive to hire and work with on our team. Always do what's right, no matter what. I love that he shared that and that you're getting to hear that, because there will be times you've got to make the decision. Do I do what's right, or do I chase the dollar? And if you choose to chase the dollar, it may not burn you the first time. It may not burn you the second time, but it will eventually burn you if you're only looking at dollars. So just deprogram that from your brain. Do what's right, no matter what, even if it's killing the deal, to save your client, to do what's right. Keep that in mind. It's going to come up, I promise.
So I did everything that I could to convince him to give us one last opportunity. I gave him, a nice discount on our services to try to get that opportunity, to serve him and to meet his goals.
Right.
To make it right.
Yeah. I've been, I remember an appointment that I had that I was actually covering for another killer rock star agent in our company. And he's like, "Hey, I'm stuck at this appointment. I can't make it back in time. Would you cover it? It's just a buyer's appointment. Guy's bought and sold many houses." I'm like, "Sure, I got this." And literally he come in and goes, "So where's he at?" I'm like, "Well, he couldn't make it. He tried. He called me. I'm available. I'll take great care of you." And this guy crossed his arms and gave me this death look for about 30 minutes. And I'm like, how soon can this appointment be over? Because every bit of what I could do to try to, I just connected with his wife, because he wasn't giving in at all. I thought, I want to be out of this. And I'd already been an agent for a long time, and I wanted out of that appointment. So let's put into perspective, 9 out of 10 don't make it their first year. The average agent that's experienced makes 3 to 5 transactions a year. So how many transactions did you complete your first year? Number one. And then how did it feel to win Rookie of the Year with our company?
Big questions.
Yes.
With proud answers. Humble but proud answers. With my diligence at work, your help, doing everything that you told me to do. The first calendar year, I got my license. I received my license in April. Sold my first house in July, and between July and December, sold 15 homes.
Right. 15 homes, really in
the third and fourth quarter of the year.
Right. But the first, quarter was, well, you got your license. The second quarter, you started building your hopper and dropping people in, making the calls. 3 months in, July, you got your first closing, and then the last 2 quarters continue to work that sphere. So 16, you said, right? 15 transactions your first year. And I remember it was down to, there was you and another newer agent that had been there a little bit longer, like had already gotten the ball rolling. It was down to the last week of December. You guys were neck and neck for Rookie of Real Estate, Rookie of the Year award. And I had and loved this other guy as much as you. And I told my wife, I'm like, how do you cheer for one or the other? They're neck and neck, and you were thinking this deal was going to die. And I think like either December 21st or December 28th, you closed that last deal that won you the award. Of course, I don't know that you knew that or not, but we knew that. We were watching it And of course, we had our launch party in January, and you won the award. But you transitioned from your day job to now what you know is your dream job. In the first year, doing 15 transactions, winning an award against some good agents. You had, I think, three other people that you were competing with, and you beat them, and you were a quarter behind when you came in. I mean, what your conversations you had with your wife, with your family, to when you got that award. Tell me about that. That's a big deal.
So, I mean, it all started with you. You had won the Rookie of the Year award when you started, and you made a picture and copied off a picture of your award, and you pasted my name over it and gave it to me. I don't know if you remember that.
I do not remember that.
But you did that, and
sounds like something I would do, though.
I taped it on the wall right in front of my desk, and I would stay up many late nights, even into the morning sometimes, working on my sphere of influence, working on handwriting and signing cards and letters for people, and what you made me kept me up at night and drove me to get the task done to be successful. And really the big thing that I saw through this was, historically over the past, 6 or 8 years, all of the agents who had won the Rookie of the Year award went on to become successful, established real estate agents with successful careers. So for me, it was almost like a rite of passage, or like a task that had to be completed to be successful. So I was all in. You're right. That last deal closed December the 28th.
Okay. So you remember that.
And, honestly, when you started presenting the award and you started talking about it and you started putting baby pictures of the award recipient.
Well, I kind of gave that away early.
On the teleprompter. I didn't realize they were pictures of me. I thought they were pictures of the other guy because they were baseball pictures. He was a baseball fan. I wasn't. And I started patting him on the leg and patting him on the back saying, "Congratulations." I thought it was him.
Oh, that is hilarious. See, I didn't know that either. That's great.
But, it means so much to me to have won that award. And I do contribute it to, mentoring and coaching for sure.
Well, there's a lot of, and I appreciate the kind words, and there's a lot of people that poured into me. And there's a lot of people, top agents, in companies that pour into new people. And together, a collaborative effort. If the person's willing to do the work, there's always great, passionate agents that are willing to help them along if they'll get out there and kill something and drag it home. So, I appreciate the kind words, and, Terry did that to me. Tara pushed me. There were some great agents that I could list as well. Knowing that, so I want to pause just for a minute. It brought a thought back to me remember, Terry DeSalms was 38 years old when he started in this industry and got his real estate license and became the first and only billion-dollar agent in Tennessee. So when he told a story one time when he got started, he went around to other top agents and said, "Hey, can I buy your time? I want to shadow you. I want to be you. Can I compensate you? I just want to watch what you do." And he had several rejections. And Terry said, "If I ever make it," this was a long time ago, and he remembers it very vividly, "if I ever make it, I'm not going to say no if somebody is willing to learn and do the work." And he programmed that into Tara. He's programmed it into me. If somebody is willing to do the work and put in the time, then teach them everything you know. Because together, even if they're not on your team, Terry went and shadowed somebody out west who had a team before teams were even in Tennessee. He went and shadowed a guy and spent a lot of money shadowing this guy. And the guy, he'd sold 3 or 4 houses by lunchtime or something crazy like that. I'll have him tell you that story one day. But he was like, "Holy cow, this guy's got this figured out." Spent a ton of money shadowing him. He came back here and started one of the first teams known in Tennessee as the DeSalms team, and did really well with it. But he promised himself and made a promise to himself, as long as somebody's willing to learn, I will always give them an opportunity. And at first he did it for free. And then as he got bigger and bigger and bigger and the more people knocked on the door, he started charging a little bit for it. But even then, there wasn't enough money that you could spend to spend that much time with Terry to learn what he knew, and he was willing to just give it out. And we even now have our boot camps. We have other teams, Remax teams, other teams that come in and buy seats at our boot camps, and we don't care. They're right down the road, but the pie is big. Pour what you know into somebody whenever you get big. Make that commitment now while you're a rookie that you're going to give back. Real estate is bigger than you. Get involved. Pour into somebody. It's very fulfilling. Somebody like yourself, sitting in rush hour traffic, as I mentioned earlier, listening to this podcast, dreaming of a transition like yours, what would you tell them?
Got a couple things. The very first thing I would tell anybody and everybody is being unhappy with your work, being burnt out at work, and being broke are just a part of life. It happens to each and every one of us at some time of our life. But remaining to stay in that situation is a decision that you make indirectly because you don't set goals and create habits for success. So if this is a goal for you, if this is something you truly want to do, you want it to better your family, you want to better your finances, you want to better your time, you can do it, but you just have to be intentional about it.
Right. Absolutely. Have a plan and then execute the plan.
Yeah.
Creating knowing your why. I knew that, I'd shared in that particular episode that, you looked at me, and I don't even think you remember saying this to me because I'd mentioned it to you that actual day that I recorded it, that I'm like, why real estate? And you're just kind of like, I'm just tired of people dying on me all the time. And I felt like that. It gives me chill bumps even now. I felt like that was so raw and so honest. And then, we got into the deeper layers of your why, and, I learned more. But that was the first response, and it was huge. Do you remember saying that to me?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. It was an emotional conversation in a very emotional meeting, and I don't remember saying that.
Well,
but I know I was
memory.
feeling that, so I have no doubt that that's not the first thing I said.
All right, so we're digging in, and I appreciate your transparency, and people are going to listen to this, and hopefully you inspire them. But you're more than 3 years in now, so after almost either on your fourth year or something like that.
2.5 years.
Okay.
April coming up will be my third year.
Coming into year 3, what are your feelings about this profession? Which I think you've already answered, but your hopes, your fears, your long-term goals. I mean, tell me, how has it transitioned your thinking now that you're coming into 3 years?
It's totally, all of my life events have totally changed my thinking. I just now really feel like I'm getting beyond the novice stage to where I feel like I'm, very efficient and capable at my job. I feel like that without a shadow of a doubt, I can walk into an appointment and definitely tell somebody I'm an expert. Not the best, but I can tell people I'm an expert. And I just feel like there's a huge misnomer of what realtors do, after being in this profession for almost 3 years. I really feel like our customers need us more than realtors. They need us to be a leader for them. We need to advocate for them. And, with the stresses and the strains and dealing with clients over the past few years, I've realized shortcomings in my life that I need to improve on, and definitely how to advise people better. Getting into the profession, I wholeheartedly believe everybody needs a mentor and a coach. I consider you my mentor because we have a personal relationship with each other. But still have a coach who can really hold you accountable and be hard on you. I really think that's important. And more than anything that has changed my thought process is recently I have helped recruit 2 new agents to our team. And
well, that'll put a lot of weight on your shoulders.
Yeah. So
you're talking other people into getting into a profession that is crazy hard, and now you feel intimately responsible for them making it.
Yeah. I told you recently, I feel like real estate and being a realtor is now bigger than I am. It's bigger than me because I have convinced through my actions led two people to come to work with us who have families, who have responsibilities, who left careers that they had known for 8 to 10 years and brought them in. So my hope is to really make a positive impact on them and, to spread our culture that you and I and Tara and the leaders here share with them so that, they can be successful. They can share it with agents when the time is right. And my big hope is just to be able to provide for my family, provide for them, and have a great time working together and enjoy our work. And, on the flip of that is the fear of not providing those things, failure, not contributing enough to the team to support the team, because we have a great staff here who are salary, who depend on our transactions to pay for their job. My fear.
Part of the paradigm switch of, you're so head down and trying to get it's transaction, and then you eventually realize, okay, I'm good at this, and 2, I'm enjoying this, and 3, you wake up and this is bigger than me. There's other people that actually do rely on you, not only your family and your success, but your goals. Jim, I have no doubt that 30 years from now we're going to be having another conversation, celebrating the adventures of real estate together. There's so much fun to be had working with people that are the same culture and the same belief and to push each other. And we still even last night, 9:30 at night, we're just double checking comps because of an appointment that you've got coming up. And there's times that I still come across the hall and go, hey Jim, what do you know about this? Because you've reached levels that I don't know in areas that I don't know, because we get, I'm good at what I do. And then you've gotten better at something that I'm not good at in just 3 years. And now I'm coming to you going, hey Jim, what do you think about, this 650 acres and over here? What can we do with that? What do you think that what would be a good plan? I've got an appointment coming up. So I appreciate the reciprocal accountability. I appreciate you coming here and being transparent. There is somebody listening that is you 3 years ago trying to make the choice, figuring out what it's going to take, and hopefully through Rookie Real Estate, through people in the industry like you that are willing to give back and pour in, that can really make their transition successful, if at all possible, given how difficult this profession can be to break into. So I really thank you for your time. Look forward to 30 more years together, celebrating all the wins. You got a new boy who, watching him grow up, 6 months old now, so excited to see that process. So
yeah, that changed my why real quick.
Yeah, it does tend to adjust your why really fast when there's little ones that start getting added on and more mouths to feed, and braces to get eventually, and college funds and weddings and things like that. So thank you for your time, Jim.
Anytime. I'm happy to see you doing this, because I know and I see the effort and the time that you put into the podcast, and how passionate you are about it. And I know that the listeners will definitely reap the benefits of spending time with you, hearing from you, and hopefully they follow your advice and recommendations.
Well, that was very kind, and I hope that you can feel the transparency of Jim. He's a totally different person than I am. I'm probably a little bit more high-strung, got a lot more energy. Jim is just brilliant. Definitely a smarter guy than I am when it comes to book smarts and diving in the books and really absorbing it that way. I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy. But, Jim's personality is even-keeled. He doesn't get worked up about anything. I'm always driving 100 miles an hour, and Jim, he keeps up and he's just going his pace. So we are two totally different people. You hear me on the first few podcasts already, and then you hear Jim. We couldn't be any more different in personalities, but yet you can hear his heart and his passion to serve, and also, giving back already, recruiting a couple people himself. So it's been, I hope you've enjoyed getting to hear Jim's story and can see yourself in one of our shoes, my shoes or his shoes. The process was about the same, but it was critical for success to be prepared, make a plan, execute it, and then go to work. All right, guys, that's wrapping this one up. Rookie Real Estate is produced and edited by Scott Parker. All of the content is written by me, your host, Kenny Stevens. Rookie Real Estate is powered by DeSelms Real Estate in Franklin, Tennessee. Now, say this one in mind. The vision of DeSelms Real Estate is to be an empowering partner, bringing agents, clients, and communities home. Simply put, we bring you home. We were able to help bring Jim home. This podcast is not designed to recruit agents, but it is to align with our vision. We want to empower agents and communities. I want this podcast to be for all brokerages, all people looking to transition. And until we meet again, guys, go and better your best.